Dylan was writing a dissertation. It was curated by Professor Laurie, and everything was going well. Dylan had done a lot of work, and he was happy the end was near. He took the draft to the professor for review and waited for the praise call, but he was shocked by the answer. The professor pointed out the mistakes, gave out her comments, and said that the work needed to be redone. Dylan was indignant. He said that the professor was wrong, that she doesn't follow world science, and there are a few remarks to be made about her work, but on the whole, everything is correct. Laurie tried to convince Dylan, but Dylan felt hurt, and he couldn't resist. "I was glad that you were my curator, because your graduates receive prestigious awards in the field of science. But now I see that your students have surpassed you, and I think they have achieved such success only because you're no longer their mentor." The professor was wise. She understood what it was like for a young man to hear comments on the work in which he had invested so much time and effort. She didn't answer and asked the student to double-check everything. Dylan said that he would not double-check anything, but rather ask for another curator, and left. Dylan found the email address of the professor's former student, who was now a famous scientist, and wrote him a letter. He pointed out what he was confronted with and asked how he used to work with Professor Laurie. The reply came the next day. The scientist wrote that everything was similar to Dylan's experience, but he is grateful for the professor's criticism. After all, if he hadn't listened to the professor and carried the unfinished work to the defense, he wouldn't have defended it. And most likely, his future career wouldn't have taken place because few people forget such mistakes. In those days, he found strength and defeated his pride, heeded the professor's advice, and rewrote the work. And yes, there were mistakes in it. Then, on defense, the scientist was 100% sure that he was right, and everything went perfectly well. Dylan was shocked by the answer, and he returned to Laurie and asked for forgiveness. The professor just smiled and suggested not to waste time. Dylan revised his dissertation and defended it. Then he thanked Laurie. Dylan asked if she was offended that her students became famous and received awards, and she did not have any ingenious discoveries. "This is the best reward for my work. After all, if a student has surpassed the teacher, then the teacher's work was not in vain. And often scientists make only one discovery in their life, and I gave the world many scientists." Sometimes getting wise criticism is much more important than words of flattery. After all, good advice is more beneficial to the result than a lot of empty praises.